and as well as open the whiteboard separately, because yesterday I used the inbuilt whiteboard within the Teams and I'm not sure why it did not record and it has shown some blank screen, is it? Okay, let me share my screen. Are you able to see it? Okay, great. Okay, so today what we are going to discuss? So we are going to discuss about Selenium, right? So with respect to Selenium, so let's try to understand the history of this Selenium, right? Shall we go ahead? Are you there with me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Let's try to understand a bit about the Selenium, right? Okay. So what is Selenium? What is Selenium?
Set of libraries.
Okay, somebody said it is set of libraries. Okay. Any other things that you know about Selenium? Anyone who has any idea about the person who has initially started working on Selenium? When they have started working on Selenium? In 2004, right? So in 2004, so Selenium was initially developed by a person called Jason Huggins. Have you heard about this guy? Yes? No? He used to work in ThoughtWorks. Which company? ThoughtWorks. Have you heard about this company, ThoughtWorks? Did not? Have you ever heard about this company, ThoughtWorks, or not? No? Okay. Okay. So ThoughtWorks is one of the software development companies. Okay. So now this guy, Jason Huggins, in 2004, he came up with the initial setup of the Selenium. So he created some test automation framework. So he created a test automation framework that is initially named as Selenium Core. What is that? It is Selenium Core, right? So it could just interact with the web browser. So what this Selenium Core used to do, it just used to interact with web browser. So what is the primary challenge that this guy is facing? This guy is facing that he understood that there we are doing some repetitive tasks. Okay. while testing our web application. So repeatedly he need to move from one screen to the other screen, navigate from each screen, and then verify the screens. Okay. So that's where initially a small program that he has come up with, and he has set the name for it as Selenium Core. So which just simply interacts with the web browser. It just interacts with the web browser. Okay. So which web browser? Which web browser at that time? So in 2004, somewhere around. So it used to interact with the web browser called Firefox. Have you heard about Firefox web browser?
Yes.
Yeah. So it initially started with this setup, right? This is the initial setup. See, it did not have any other functionalities, or it did not have any other setup. It's just simply some piece of code that he has come up with that would able to interact with the web browser. It would able to make the person navigate automatically across the pages, web pages. That's all, right? So now what happened in 2004, he has come up with this, but later on it it has evolved, right? It has evolved altogether. So what kind of evaluation we have seen in 2006, right? In 2006, so this Selenium core, so this is a small piece of code, right? So what they did, they have merged this code with another testing framework that is called as Selenium IDE. So what is Selenium IDE? What is this IDE means? Integrated Development Environment, right? Now what happened? So there is some other developer again who joined hands with this guy. Okay. So this guy has come up with Selenium core. That's all. So he is happy with it because his challenge, whatever he is facing in the day-to-day activities, he tried to address that. That's all. Now, when it comes to some other developer, he thought, okay, let me use this Selenium core, but I have some other requirement as well. What is that requirement? So you are able to navigate between the pages on, I mean, by accessing the application on the web browser, right? Web application on the web browser. So now what I would do is I would come up with additional functionalities to this. So he has added record and playback. So what they did? Record and playback. What is this record and playback? So you can record whatever navigation automatically it is being done, right? And again, you can play that as a video, right? So for creating even the test scripts, this would help. So it would record whatever navigation you do on the fly, and it would generate automatic code. So this is also there. Generate automatic script, right? I no need to write the code. So automatically the test script would be generated, right? So we record and then play back. So we would be able to again play the same set of steps that you do. And then it also generates the test script for me. I no need to write the test script. So they named it as Selenium IDE then. So it is integrated development environment, right? Why it is called as integrated development environment? Just only because so it is integrated to your development environment. Wherever you have built your code, you can just simply have this Firefox browser. Within that, this Selenium IDE plugin, right? You can just install that plugin and then start record and playback. That's all. So locally, you would be able to record. you would be able to play that back again, and then you would also at the same time getting, I mean, you are generating the test script as well. You are not required to add any test script manually, right? Or any logics manually. Good, right? Selenium ID. It's a simple plugin for Firefox. So that was in 2006. Clear till here? Are we clear? Clear, no? I'm proceeding further. So what happened 2004 to 2006? You have seen this much of evolution for the Selenium, right? They said core initially, and then they said we are adding few more features into it, and they called it as Selenium IDE. So they provided the record and playback functionality for creating the test scripts. So you no need to do it, right? So the developer who worked on this is Indian, ideally, right? So it is Shinya Kasatani. Okay. So now this guy has implemented this record and playback, automatic script generation. And now what happened in 2008 again? So see here, the evaluation is getting, you know, uh, what I could say like improved once in 2 years, right? See how much investment the people are doing on Selenium, right? Because it is a open source. So everyone wanted to support this at that time because this is the only ray of hope during the time when you have the tools, automated tools, but those are very costly, right? Costly affair. So automation is not an easy affair at that time. It is very costly affair for the projects to, um set up this automation, right? So now in 2008, what happened? So now they moved this entire Selenium project to, so somebody came and said, I will buy you out, right? Have you heard about Apache? Apache software? Yes? No? Are you people there with me? How many are
Yes,
there?
yes,
One, two,
yes,
three. Yeah, I have the people here. Okay. So Apache Software Foundation, Apache Software, have you heard about it?
yes,
Okay, great. So now what happened? So this company, they came in 2008 and said, this is promising and we would like to buy this project. We would take over this project. So they have take over this project. So till now, nobody has mentioned that this is a open source. They just had this software locally with them, right? And nobody is much aware of this Selenium automation software. Now, when this particular software or the project, Selenium project was moved to Apache Software Foundation in 2008, that's when it became open source. They have declared that this particular project is an open source project, right? Now, if you see, the company is a very prominent company. Okay. So now the prominent company has declared that it is open source. So the project itself became open source. And then there is a significant development that it has undergone. And the most popular test automation frameworks for web application, they came into picture, right? So they came into picture. Now let's talk about it. So what kind of features that that we have got in the Selenium due to this vigorous, uh, uh, what we say like the development, right? Or the evaluation that it take place. So based upon the evaluation, so what I could see the key features, or first one is they extended it multi-browser support, right? Till then, it was just confined to Firefox, Mozilla Firefox. But now Selenium extended to multi-browser support. They just came up with a bang like anything in 2008-10. That time they started supporting Google Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Internet Explorer in the at those times, and the Microsoft Edge, right? Whatnot. Any browser, if you take, they support for it, right? And then they came up with multi-language support. So what do you mean by multi-language support? So now it is like Selenium supports various programming languages. So it supports Java, it supports C Sharp, it supports Python, it supports Ruby, it supports JavaScript, right? Various languages, correct? And then what it has given? The very famous feature, that is record and playback. So have you uh, ever worked on QTP or the UFT? Anyone? So it's a HP test automation tool, which is a licensed version. And those licensed version used to have this record and playback feature, wherein Selenium started providing this feature, record and playback, right? It's open source, but still it is providing it. So this helps in creation of test scripts. Without manually adding any test scripts, you can just record the scripts and then play back again, right? And then it started supporting various protocols. So why these protocols are required? Communication, right? What kind of communication? Client and server communication, right? Because we are on the internet. So what kind of protocols would be supported? Like HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, file transfer protocol, right? Likewise. So there are few more. So these are the protocols that it started supporting, right? Clear on this part? So now see, they slowly started adding all these features into Selenium itself. So nobody would ever probably again think of going to um, what is that? Think of going back to any licensed version tools, right? Now, they also extended it, the support for mobile devices, right? So mobile devices, any Android or iOS devices, so they support it, right? So when you see this much from Selenium, right? When you see this much of features that they kept evolving, so it is good for us, right? So that's where Selenium has got large user base now. It's only because in that moment of time, in those years, so when it is in 2004 and 6, during that time, there is no other tool which is a automation tool with open source, right? Which is open source, free to use. So now they came up, Apache software foundation, they bought this project, they started evolving it, they added all these features one after the other, and they released the versions, and then they also started maintaining these components, right, of the Selenium, and then they said, this is it. This is the open source. Anyone can download and utilize it. So they maintain the software in their portal. Correct? Clear on this? Are we clear?
Yes.
Hmm. See how many features we have got. Good to see these features, right? So these ideally made us to jump to Selenium or migrate to Selenium. Most of the projects, they started migrating to Selenium. Even Android, during those times, so Android is very new, I guess. So if I remember, it is Samsung uh, who has brought Android into the market initially in India at least. So I remember it. Like we used to still get those QWERTY keypad mobiles at that time. Okay, and I guess it is BlackBerry with some separate OS, and then we used to have iOS, iPhone, Apple. So that is very premium mobiles at that time, too much costly in India, right? And then this Android came into the market. At that time, I remember Nokia has the major share in the market, and Android, it bombed like anything in the market, right? And still we see the major share in the market. Android holds the major share, right, in the market in terms of mobile devices and TVs. Even Android TVs, Android smart TVs, smart what we say, smart watches, right? Everything came into the market now, correct? Now it's not just what is it, Samsung. So there are lots of other companies as well who come up with Android mobiles, right? So that's how it is. So when there is some evaluation and when there is a market disruption, so based upon the trend, people will just follow it, right? Now that's how there is a lots of projects that got migrated from other tools to the Selenium. Okay. So but when you are doing this migration of any project, of any automation project from your current tool to Selenium, so you also need to evaluate certain things, right? Yes or no? Blindly we cannot migrate it because everyone is using Selenium. I also need to use Selenium. That's not the case, right? So in market, we have various other tools as well. So what we do initially, first we would do the feasibility study, correct? So what is that feasibility study? Feasibility study is nothing but POC, proof of concept. It's not point of contact. Here it is proof of concept. So what is this proof of concept? Probably we will select a scenario, test scenario, or a test case that involves end to end, end to end in the system. So it interacts each and every page, it navigates each and every page, and then at last it logs out, right? And not just page, each and every components. When I say components, you could have your UI and then DB and then some other portal where you need to again verify whether the details submitted from here are appearing. So some other portal, right? If likewise you have any other integrated systems, So you need to consider your end-to-end test case from the upper bound systems till the lower bound system. Okay. So such kind of test case you would select and then try to automate it using your Selenium, right? So now once you are able to achieve this goal, so what is that you are providing to the stakeholders? What is the information that you would share to the stakeholders? Yes, we have successfully done our proof of concept by using the Selenium tool. It could be any language, right? Based upon the development that has been done. If the development is done in Java, we would go by Java Selenium. If it is C Sharp or the .NET applications, then we would go by C Sharp Selenium, right? So now when you have done that proof of concept, that itself would boost the confidence of the stakeholders and as well as all the test automation team members, right? So what we were assuring them that yes, I have automated an end-to-end test case, just a record and playback. That is also fine. But we would be able to tell them that this particular end-to-end test case is automated, wherein it involves various integrated systems communicating with each other, and we have successfully automated the flow, right? So if that is confirmed, that is nothing but your proof of concept. So once you have done your proof of concept, then you would proceed with your actual scope of work. And then again, you would also provide the efforts that are required in order to come up with uh, what we say, like the entire automation. And then we will draw the line like by when we want that delivery to happen. And accordingly, we would see how many resources we need to accommodate, right, into the team, such that we would be able to achieve our scope of work within the dedicated or a stipulated timeline, right? So this is how a high level our process would be. So we need to first do the POC and then decide whether our application suits when we work on Selenium, right? Otherwise, there are many other tools. You can even bring in some other tool and try to leverage it, right? Clear on this part? Clear? Shall I proceed further? So now, with respect to Selenium, so there are components, various components in Selenium, right? So what are these various components of Selenium? Anyone? Any idea on this part? Components of Selenium? Maybe if I tell you the first component, then you might say, I hear about this. Selenium WebDriver. Have you heard about this?
Yes. Yes.
Yes? You hear about this, right? Great. So in the similar way, we also have Selenium IDE. You hear about this as well? Recently we spoke about it, right?
Initial stage.
Yeah, Selenium IDE. So this is a record and playback tool that allows users to create test scripts by recording interactions with a web browser, right? And that web browser is Firefox, Mozilla Firefox, right? So now then we got one more that is Selenium Grid. Have you ever heard about grid? Selenium grid?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have got Selenium standalone server. Have you heard about this Selenium standalone server? Did you hear about this? No? Okay.
Yes.
Heard about this? Great. So what is this standalone server? What does this do? So there is a server. So when you have server, definitely you would also have client, right? To connect to the server. So now this is the server that allows users to run the tests on a remote machine, right? So locally executing your tests is altogether a different job. But if you want to run your tests on a separate remote machine, so your machine would be somewhere else. It's a remote machine. You can able to access, connect to that, and then execute your tests on that particular remote machine. So that you could able to do using Selenium standalone server, right? Previously, it is a separate component. These components I am talking about is in the initial, right? So initially when they have come up with four different components: Selenium standalone server, and then the Selenium grid. So somebody said he heard about this grid as well. So what is this? This allows users to run multiple tests in parallel. So your parallel execution of multiple test cases can be achieved using Selenium grid, right? And then Selenium IDE, we discussed of this. Record, sorry. So record and playback, a plugin, right? So now what is this WebDriver? So what is the WebDriver? Anyone who heard about this? Somebody said they have heard about Selenium WebDriver. Currently, which version of Selenium WebDriver we have? Is it 2, 3, or 4? Why this much silence, man? Okay, somebody pinged stating it is 4.2. So right. So your Selenium WebDriver version is version 4 and above, right? So this is the current version. Okay. So now, even when you see these components, within the components, you have some evaluation again, right? So versioning, there is frequent modifications, frequent changes to the methods, to the packages within the projects, and then they keep updating them and generate the jar files and generate the packages again and again, right? Keep evolving. So it is always like it keeps evolving, not just Selenium, any tools, any softwares, right? Even if you get a Windows system, right, or a Mac, so what happens? So they also release some software updates frequently. right? Timely, you would receive some software updates for it, right? Even mobile phones, even WhatsApp, right? Or any other mobile apps. So they keep providing or updating the versions, right? So when we are updating the versions, either it is because there is some platform related changes, or either there are some new components that are getting added or new features that are getting added, right? So it's nothing but evolution of that particular product. So in the similar way, this Selenium as well, it has evolved like anything in the past 10 to 15 years. Okay. So now when it comes to Selenium WebDriver, this is the core component of the Selenium that provides a programming interface for interacting with the web browsers. So what does this WebDriver do for us? So WebDriver is the core component of the Selenium that helps us to interact with the web browsers. Okay. Selenium IDE, you can leave it. It's a plugin which they have released long ago and nobody is using it now. Okay. Even uh, what is that? Selenium standalone as well, you can leave it because the WebDriver itself is a combination of Selenium core plus standalone now. Okay. So we use Selenium WebDriver. We do not need to set up or download a standalone server, set your server, start the server, and then it starts invoking the tests in somewhere in some other remote machine and execute it. Not required. So you have everything within your Selenium WebDriver itself. So Selenium WebDriver is the core component. It is a combination of Selenium core plus Selenium standalone. And what it does, it interacts with the it allows us to interact with the web browsers, right? So it's a interface. So we would try to understand what is an interface in the next further classes, where we would discuss about the OOPS concepts of C sharp, right? So for now, you can uh, just keep this keyword in the mind that it is an interface. Selenium WebDriver is a interface. So what happens? So it would have various methods in it, which would help us to interact with the browser, which would help us to interact with the web pages, which would help us to interact with the elements that we see on the web page. So what are all the elements that we see on the web page? Anyone? What components or elements you see on the web page? Text box, buttons, any other components that you see?
Drop downs, radio buttons.
Somebody said drop downs,
Yes,
radio
yes.
buttons, check boxes, uh, text area, and then frames, and what else? Links. What else we see? Images. Correct? No? Any other components? If you remember or if you get to know, so you can even mention them. Okay. So yeah. So these are some of the prominent components that you keep seeing in the web pages, right? So now these all components can be worked out or can be interacted by using Selenium WebDriver itself. So you have Selenium WebDriver, right? So you have Selenium WebDriver, which helps you to interact with all of this. Sorry. So clear on this part? So Selenium WebDriver is the core component that we would be concentrating on, right? And then Selenium Grid. Selenium Grid again is still there, and it is used for running your test cases in parallel. Let's say you have 10 test cases. So you want to run all the 10 test cases at once, uh, trigger them at once, and then start the execution at once. Parallelly, all the 10 test cases you want them to be executed, you can use Selenium Grid. So Selenium Grid architecture would help you in achieving it. But there are some drawbacks with the Selenium Grid. So rather than going by Selenium Grid, there are other ways to achieve this, right? So now we got Docker containers, Kubernetes pods, right? So there are various other ways how we can manage this and achieve the multiple tests execution in parallel, right? Rather than using Selenium Grid, because this again is a old architecture, right? Clear on this part? And it has some disadvantages as well. We will discuss in further sessions. Clear? Are we good with the Selenium components and the evaluation of this Selenium? Any questions till now?
No.
All good? So other two are very silent. Okay, there is some mic issue for Neil. What about Devananda?
I'm, my
Are you
voice
guys
is
able to
audible?
hear him? Yeah, yeah. Now I'm
Yeah,
able to hear you.
yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
You're good. Okay. So see here. So how much evaluation has happened? And now we came to Selenium WebDriver. Now let's go to the. So are you able to see the browser, web browser?
Yes.
Okay. So what we need to do, let's get into the Selenium. This one, Selenium Dev, right? So when you get into this website itself, you could see here you have Selenium conferences, right? And the details that are getting displayed here. That means there are some summits that happen. And probably if you are interested, you can even attend those, right? And then you have some tabs here like downloads and then the documentation, right? So probably we would see what kind of documentation we would have and the downloads. And to get started, so what I said previously, it's the similar stuff, right? So you have Selenium WebDriver and you have IDE. Mostly teams are not using this Selenium IDE, and you also have Selenium Grid. You can see here, right? So these are the three components we are left with, right? And then what is the one which we need? We need is Selenium WebDriver, correct? So we are using this Selenium WebDriver. So if you want to create robust browser-based regression automation suite and test, scale and distribute scripts across many environments, then you want to use Selenium WebDriver, a collection of language specific bindings to drive a browser the way it is meant to be driven, right? That is what they have already defined about Selenium WebDriver here. If you want to read more, you can get into this. You can read more, right? So right now it is Selenium version 4, correct? Clear on this part? And now we can get on to the downloads, and then you can just have your Selenium WebDriver language bindings downloaded. If it is .NET C#, so we would download from here. The stable versions they have already mentioned. See, for Python it is 4.27. For .NET it is 4.27. For Ruby as well. For Java, right? So the stable version, whatever they have given, so you can download it. Before downloading, you can also go through the change log. So what kind of new changes that they have implemented? So they would mention in the change log. You can see here, it is again getting you into the Selenium, into the GitHub repository, right? So where they have documented certain stuff here. Probably some items you might be able to understand and some you may not, right? So, but this documentation would help to understand what fixes they have provided. They said fix WebSocket communication for .NET framework. So they have made some changes here. Previously, there is some issue, right? Likewise. So they mentioned each and everything with respect to each version. See, now it is 4.27, but this is change log, right? So you would have log of each and every change. So version 4.25.0, what fixes they have provided. So version 24.0, what fixes they have provided. See, they did some migration from newtonsoft.json package to system.text.json. So probably this newton.json package is deprecated. Okay, so I'm not sure, need to check, but probably this my expectation is why they would do migration simply, right? So unless until the old package is deprecated. So that's the expectation from my side. So newtonsoft.json, it got deprecated and they have new package that is system.text.json. So if we need to interact with JSON files, this package is mandatory for us. So previously we used to use newtonsoft.json, maybe we would use system.text.json likewise. But this is for .NET, right? And yeah, C#, correct? So this is how it is. And the changes you would be able to see in the change log, and the documentation you would be seeing in the API docs, right? So if you click on this, you would be navigating to the documentation. So now what is this documentation does? So this documentation would give you all the methods that you have in this interface, Selenium interface. You would be able to see the documentation for each and everything. So for each and everything, each module within this. So this is one BD dot modules, right? BIDI. So you can check, you can bank on this and then see what kind of documentation you would have, like whether it is an abstract class and whether it has constructors or not. We will anyway talk about this, these basics, like what are these constructors, why these are required and other stuff. But this would give you some kind of documentation. See, openqa.selenium. Openqa.selenium is the class which has got some methods in it, like by, capability type, command. So there are various other driver options, right? HTTP request data, correct? So these are all the methods, and you can even see the documentation one-liners with respect to each of these, and you can click on the particular what we say, like the class, and then you can try to understand what it is, right? And what parameters it takes. So everything would be documented here, right? Based upon the changes that they come up with. Clear on this part? So selenium.dev is the place from where you would be able to download your stable package. You can just click on this and then download that Selenium package. That's all we need to do. Clear on this part?
Yes.
Are we clear?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll stop the session for today here and then we will continue from tomorrow. You can download that particular Selenium WebDriver and keep it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.